This is Howd Korea.
All right, so it's a little bit dark here, and the reason for that is because you can see the lights a little bit better when the lighting is dark. So this is Ian's boiler, okay? As you can see, it's a little bit different from my boiler, but the options are still very similar, all right? So on the upper right corner, this red button, it says 전원. That's the power. So if you press it, it turns off. Press back, it turns back on, right? Down here, it says 온수 전용. And again, that's the mode that you have that you always want to leave on because it's just that's the mode that you always want to leave on because it's just the hot water. Okay? So unless you're running the hot water, it won't use the gas inside your house. So your gas bill is not going to shoot through the roof just because you have this mode on. So usually this is the standard setting that you want it to be. Okay? This light over here underneath, it says 실내 온도, and what that means is the temperature inside your house. So right now you can see that it's 22 degrees inside the house, right? And the way this boiler senses the temperature is down here, there's a little hole, and inside there's a temperature sensor. So what it does is it senses the temperature in the air down here, and it tells you that it's 22 degrees right now, right? So there are a few ways to work with this boiler, but before that, on the left side, you have 난방수 온도, okay? And what that is the temperature of the water running through the pipes. So as we mentioned in one of our videos, the way the Korean boilers work is there are pipes running underneath the floor of your house. And as the water runs through the boiler and through the pipes underneath the floor, the water heats up and it heats up your floor. And then as the heat rises, it heats up your house, right? So there's two ways you can set this boiler. You can set it by the temperature of the water running through the pipes, and then you can set it by the temperature in the air, okay? So if you press this button over here, what it does is it turns off just the hot water, and it turns on the 실내 온도 mode, right? And what that does is it changes the temperature of the house based on the sensor down here, right? So right now it's at 22 degrees, but if I turn this knob, you can see that it changes the temperature that I want it to be. So if I set it to 25, what it'll do is it'll start running the boiler on the floor, running the hot water through the floor, and it'll do it at a temperature so that when the heat rises and this air becomes 25 degrees, it'll maintain it at that temperature. Okay? The other mode is if you turn this back on. Oh, sorry, I turned that off and press this, okay? And what this does is it tells you the temperature of the water currently running through the pipes. So right now it's 29 degrees. That's the temperature of the water running through the pipes in your house. And what you want to do is play with this number over here, play with this knob so that you can set the temperature of the water. So if you look here, this says 여름, which means summer. This says 봄, 가을, which is spring and fall. And this says 겨울, which is winter, right? So these are just recommendations for the temperature you should set it at during these seasons, okay? So right now, let's say, for example, it's winter. I want it to be around 75 degrees. And I can't really tell you what that feels like. You're going to have to try to experiment with it and see what feels comfortable for your feet as you're walking throughout the house, okay? Now, if I turn this back on, what you'll see is this light turns off. This light says 운전, right? And this means basically the literal translation is drive. But what it means is that it's working. The boiler is working hard to heat the water, right? So if I adjust the temperature here, you'll see that this light comes back on. What that means is that the boiler is heating the water to get the desired temperature, whether it be the water temperature that you want or the room temperature that you want. You'll see that this light remains on so that the water is turning on. Once the temperature is where you want it to be, then the light will turn off and you'll know that your temperature is set, okay? This one is a little different because if you turn this knob all the way to the left, it goes into 외출 mode. And 외출 is, remember in the other video, what I told you is this is when you leave the house for a few days and you want to make sure that the water in your pipes don't freeze. But again, I wouldn't recommend using this option because it just really eats up gas, and there's been a lot of controversial studies or whatever, but a lot of people recommend not using that option. All right. And over here, 반복 시간. I believe when you put it into 외출 mode, what it does is every 2 hours or every 3 hours or 4 hours, it'll repeat and heat the water to the temperature that you want it to be. Okay, so this might not apply only to the wet room mode. It might apply to the other ones too. I'm not exactly sure about this one. But if you set it to, for example, you want 25 degrees in the air and you set it to 2 hours, what it'll do is heat the water to 25 degrees or heat the room to 25 degrees every 2 hours, right? So once the temperature is set to 25, if it's cold outside, the temperature inside your house will drop, but it won't try to heat it again to 25 degrees until 2 hours later. And you can set the time so that it's 0 hours. And what that does is your boiler just keeps working and working to maintain the temperature at 25 degrees inside your house. All right. And I believe that's it. Yeah, this button doesn't really do anything. So yeah, that's the explanation. All right. So if you like this video, please click subscribe in the middle over here and check out our links below under the video.
And also make sure to click on the notification icon so that you can stay up to date with our future episodes. And be sure to leave some comments below and let us know what you would like us to discuss in future episodes.